Greetings and welcome to another Drive With Me video. Today I will be driving from Brighton to Lewes, who a couple of days ago just had their annual bonfire night. I went a while ago, I haven't been for a while, and I should probably go back actually and check it out, because it is good. It is good, it's mental. But yeah, as always with my Drive With Me videos, I will be time stamping all the relevant topics down below that I'll be covering. So if you want to skip ahead and listen to a certain topic, you can do so, or you can come and join me for the whole ride. Let's go. So just fresh in my, I wasn't going to talk about this actually, but it's kind of fresh in my head because I just listened to the podcast. So I'm going to start off. Any of you guys listen to Alistair Campbell and Rory Stewart's podcast? It's really, really good. I like to take a balanced diet of different news and opinion. I listen to a lot of left-wing pundits. I listen to a lot of right-wing pundits, as you know from my videos that I do on Talk Radio and GB News. But these guys, Rory Stewart, Alistair Campbell, kind of bring me in the centre. They're my centre politics listening, and I find their podcast really good. If not anything, it's good to have an insight into Alistair Campbell's time in government and everything, and it's a really good podcast. But they were just the one I just listened to, which is fresh in my brain, which I want to talk about, is Julia Gillard, the ex-Australian Prime Minister, was talking, and it was really fascinating actually, because she was talking about compulsory voting that they have in Australia, and I'd never really thought about it in detail before. I knew that they had it in Australia, and I knew it was a good thing, but I'd never really thought about it in the context of what it actually does to political party policy. Because in Australia, the political parties have to appeal to everyone. They have to appeal to everyone, because everyone has to vote. They have to appeal to the young, they have to appeal to the old, they have to appeal to the middle class, to the lower class, to the working class, to the immigrants, to absolutely everyone they have to appeal to. Instead, in this country, where you get a Tory party that will just try and appeal to homeowners and retirees, and the Labour Party that just need to convince a few of those working class Brexit voters that they're the ones, and pander to the woke stuff and all that. You don't have that, and it's fascinating how much difference a compulsory voting system. I mean, I even think that this is just as needed, if not on the same level, as a proportional representation voting system. I think this could do the world of good in this country, but we come back to the same problem, don't we? None of the two main parties are going to. Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe Labour. The Tories certainly will not advocate for this. No, of course not. Absolutely destroy them if compulsory voting was in place. But I, in a way, think it would actually benefit Labour, because all it's going to do is get more young people voting, and I think more young people will be voting Labour. I'm very surprised that they don't. Well, maybe they will. Maybe they will put it in their manifesto for the next election. But yeah, I want your comments on that. Did anyone listen to the podcast? Do you have an opinion? I know I have a few listeners from Australia. You know, what's your opinion? I just think it's fantastic. And she was talking about how they do it as well. So, you know, whenever you move house, it's just one of those laws that you have to register to vote. You know, the same in this country, when you move house and you have to by law renew your driving license and all these things. And you know, they go knocking on doors to areas where they have a lot of rotation of people moving in and out, make sure people are registered to vote, and obviously you get a fine. So that's how it works. If you get a fine if you don't vote. But it is actually also in law in Australia that you can just draw a giant cock on your ballot paper if that's what you want to do. You can still do that as a protest vote, that's fine, but as long as you actually turn up and you fill out a paper, then you won't get a fine. But yeah, really fascinating. So I just wanted to add on that one quick, because that was just sort of fresh in my brain. But the main thing that I wanted to talk about today was stage one in getting the Tories re-elected. It started this week, and oh my god, I feel like I'm back in 2015, 2016. I really do. Do you remember last week when we're all talking about how god-awful the Tories are and how incompetent they are and how many prime ministers they had in the space of a couple of months, how ridiculous this party is. Well, stage one has now started of Rishi Sunak trying to get re-elected, and it is out in full force, and it is Operation Stage 1, blame the immigrants. We're back in 2015. Seriously, I'm just expecting a bloody public service announcement from Nigel Farage to come on next time I put a YouTube video on. Does anyone else feel this? Like we're back in 2015 again? The same bloody arguments are coming out. I'm hearing them all the time, discussing on TV. Oh, immigration, the burden on the NHS. Oh, it's terrible. Burden on the NHS. And just the absolute nonsense and uneducated claptrap that people come out with, like the burden on the NHS. People don't understand that foreign workers pay for their NHS care. A Filipino colleague of my wife pays $2,000 a year for her NHS cover. And she's still paying taxes on top of that. And she's helping get people better, get old people better that are telling her to piss off back home. That's the biggest irony of it. She's the one in hospital getting these people well. The very same ones that want to tell her to piss off because she's a burden on the NHS. Oh God, it's the same rhetoric over and over again from 2015. And we expected this from the Tory party, because this is what they do. You know, we know that they can solve the migrant crossings overnight. We know that the French have offered to put asylum centres up in France. If we both pay equally, we could stop border crossings overnight. But the Tories don't want to do that, because A, they don't want to spend the money, and B, this is what they want. They want everyone thinking about migrants, angry about migrants, because we're not seeing how fucking incompetent the Tories are. We saw them for a week. Everyone was on it for a week. when Liz Truss fucked up the country, Rishi Sunak came in for a week. Everyone was talking about how incompetent the Tories are. Now everyone's talking about immigrants. They want this. They want this chaos. Because also they can get elected off this bullshit as well, because no one in their right mind can trust the Tories with the economy now. Look what they've done. Look what they've done. So all they have now is immigration. Okay, we're going to be the party to sort out immigration. You haven't sorted nothing out for 12 years, but we're going to be the party to sort out immigration. It's just, like I keep saying, it just feels like I'm back in 2015 again. Blaming immigrants, blaming Blair. Keep seeing this. Oh, Blair was responsible. Blair was responsible. Okay, you can't hide from the fact that we've had a massive influx of people into this country, 2 million by most counts over the last sort of 20 years. But that's with Eastern Bloc countries joining the EU, Romania, Poland. Why are you blaming Labour? We know why they're blaming Labour, because that's exactly what they want. This is what I see all day on all the claptrap, all the Sun, the Daily Mail, Talk Radio, GB News. They're pumping this shit out. Look at the immigrants, and it was all Labour's fault. All Labour's fault. It's just, it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. And I don't know how long are we going to be in now for another 2 years of immigrant bashing like we had before the referendum in 2016. No one sees the good that happens. I saw a documentary. If I can find it again, I'll put it in the video. I saw a documentary showing centres and volunteers helping refugees to learn English.
80 turned up this week, all for basic English lessons.
A zoo. Do you know the word zoo? Where you go to see animals. Zebra, giraffe, elephant.
On this table, a volunteer puts Iraqis and Eritreans through their paces.
Can you think of a word with V?
Visa.
Visa. Yes, that's a very good word. Visa.
This is all part of a project funded by the Methodist Church. These asylum seekers are not allowed to work, so the idea here is to get them together, both to meet each other and members of the local community.
Chinese,
young people into athletes.
Today, it's the turn of the local Sikh temple to cook everyone lunch. For all the coverage of Syrian refugees at the moment, what strikes you when you look at the faces here is that these people come from all across the world. Elsa Adamson runs the project here.
Yeah, so on the list, I've got Albania, that's another one, Libya, Sudan, Syria, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Kosovo.
We never see that side. We never see the side of decent human beings that have come over. Really decent people fleeing war.
But to come here, Hanis had to leave behind his family, his parents and a wife and newborn baby. He says he was left with no choice. It was too dangerous for them to make the journey.
No one is happy to leave the place where he or she grew up, you know. You've got your roots there, you've got your relatives, you've got your memories, you've got your friends, you've got absolutely everything there. But eventually, when you start realizing that enough is enough and you cannot stand it anymore, because you either will be killed or you will be used to kill people.
We never see that side. Maybe you can dig it out on some video that I found on YouTube, but we never see that side of the immigration talk. We don't. And we never see the side, you know, the Tories have been very specific on where they put refugees as well. This is why we have a problem in Middlesbrough and Bradford, where all refugees are sent to these one areas. Labour were trying to spread asylum seekers out throughout the whole country. You know, they've very successfully done this in Germany, where when they took on a massive amount of refugees, they didn't put them in one area so they can form ghettos and things like that. You know, they spread them out across the country, so they had no choice but to integrate. They had to integrate, they had to learn the language, and they had to speak and integrate with other English people. But the Tories, they're not going to put refugees in Lord Twatface Toff's region in Devon, are they? Oh my God. God forbid. God forbid Lord Twatface III walks down to his local post office and sees a bloody refugee hanging out. God, no, we can't have that. So they put them all in old Labour voting areas. Bradford, northern towns. And they'll blame it on the Labour Council. Where's the Labour Council, isn't it? It's the Labour MPs in Middlesbrough. There still is Labour MP in Middlesbrough. Well done to you, Middlesbrough. Was talking about how he's taken on his fair share. If I can find the clip, I will put it in.
The local MP says he's proud of the way his town has responded, but others now have to play their part.
Well, the dispersal system is predicated on the availability of housing. I think that's the inappropriate way to allow this to be a commercial exercise where profit is made out of people's misery. I find that viscerally unacceptable.
Does it feel like other parts of the UK aren't doing their bit then?
Well, I think that's absolutely right. I think there are towns and cities throughout the UK doing very little by comparison to a town like this. I think we show a very good example as to how people should be welcomed. And quite frankly, if there was the policy was predicated on a different basis, the numbers of people who are seeking sanctuary in our country would melt into our community without anybody knowing they were here.
No, Tory MPs aren't going to take their fair share into their constituencies, are they? Because they ain't going to get voted in afterwards if suddenly the nice county of Devon decides to take on a few refugees. Oh God, have we got to go cross-country for a massive lake now? Oh, I did actually try. I was supposed to do this video yesterday. I had a drive up to Haywards Heath, Lingfield area, but it was just absolutely pissing it down, and you couldn't hear it. Plus, I think the windscreen wipers constantly going back and forward is a massive distraction when doing a video, so I can't really do one in the rain. Okay, so what's the deal with this puddle then? Is it really deep in that middle bit? Yeah, everyone seems to be coming over to the right here, don't they? Maybe it's the same. I mean, sometimes I feel like everyone's just doing the same thing because they think maybe that part is just as deep as that section there. Who knows? Who knows? But anyway, going back to the topic, I'm sick of the hate in this country at the moment, and it's just like I say, it's back to pre-Brexit times. It really is. And we need radical change. We really, really, really need radical change. And a part of me is a little bit scared that just the Labour government coming in 2 years' time is not enough. It's not enough. We need absolute radical change in this country. You know, when everyone got excited about Obama during the Obama years over in America, everyone thought, he's going to change, he's going to stop, you know, racial hate, racial divide, you know, he's going to stop the poor and rich divide, he's going to sort everything out. He's still bombed Syria and Libya. There's still just as many drug addicts and just as many poor people and just as much, if not more, hate. Well, then that came along with Trump. But it does scare me a little bit, because we do need drastic change in this country. And I'm starting to think that maybe just voting in a Labour government is not really the right drastic change that we need. But I suppose it's one step at a time, isn't it? This is the problems that we have in this country now. We can't sort them overnight. It's going to take time. It's going to take time, and let's let this ambulance through. Where you going, mate? Get out of the way. There we go. You know, we've got to deal with 12 years of Tory austerity and cuts. You can't sort that out overnight. So first step is get the Tories out, get a Labour government in, and hopefully that Labour government can just keep improving and improving as time goes by. But we need just massive investment into public services. Oh God, absolutely gutted to the bone. And we need big, bold decisions. Like, economy is screwed right now. We all know this, right? Why is no one making a big, bold decision like, let's legalise marijuana? Okay, marijuana is a £2.5 billion industry in the UK. Massive industry. Imagine that tax revenue overnight, straight away. That's tax revenue coming in. Right, I'm going to stop talking because I need to negotiate this. Lewes is not my favourite place, to be honest, to come and deliver something. It's a lovely town. It's a gorgeous town, but it's not the greatest place to negotiate around with a van. And obviously they had the famous bonfire night here 2 nights ago, so maybe there's a lot of tourists in Lewes that have got a hotel and a lot of cars and stuff, so it's not the greatest time. But yeah, we need bold decisions. Like, why? So many other countries have done this successfully. Why not be bold? Let's legalise marijuana. The thing is, the Tories want to do, they would want to legalise marijuana, anything that is business related, but it's just their voters, isn't it? And this comes back to the original, right, Dave House. I'm forgetting where I was. Right, I'm going to come back to this because I've got to make my delivery, and we'll see you in a sec. Alright, sorry about that. Just delivered a sofa to a single mum there. She was tiny. I'll tell you what, the people that complain the most whenever I deliver furniture, like big furniture, like wardrobe, heavy sofa, the ones that complain the most are always like the big gym going bodybuilder guys. They always complain the most. And you get a young little thing, tiny little girl, and she's like, yeah, whack the sofa, she's fine. Yeah, I just thought I'd add that. But where was I? I was at legalising marijuana, wasn't I? But mainly I was at big, bold decisions that we need drastic change in this country. We need someone to come out and say, come on, let's just pump 2.5 billion into our economy and legalise marijuana. Let's get together and nationalise our energy to make it cheaper for everyone. Big, bold decisions need to be taken. Now, I mentioned marijuana because I had an interesting conversation. Well, there was an interesting conversation happening in one of my previous videos that really sparked my interest because, oh God, this hill's a little bit too much for my battery. Come on. That's another thing I don't really like about Lewes, all the crazy narrow hills. But yeah, there was an interesting conversation in one of the threads of my videos about drug legalisation. Now, anyone that's been a friend of the channel for a long time has known this is a topic that I've talked about quite a few times, and I'm very, very, very passionate about. But I'd love to, because I totally see both sides of the argument on this one, on drugs legalisation. And let me just negotiate this little bit here and I'll get back on it. But yeah, there was quite a fiery debate, not fiery, but you know, a conversation that was had about legalising drugs and the effect of the drug war on society, and it piqued my interest because I'd love to. A comment section conversation is not the place for that discussion. It's so complex and there's so many different things to talk about. It really would make a fascinating live stream video. So I'd love to talk to someone that, but obviously that has a difference of opinion to myself. I'm for legalisation of drugs. It would be really interesting to talk to someone on a live stream, or you know, just a video, who doesn't share that belief, who believes that we should keep drugs illegal. But I'll talk about it briefly here now anyway, because I mean, basically my stance on drugs would be what I just said. You can't just overnight suddenly, right, drugs are legal, let's sell them in Asda. That's mental. But these key stages is what I'd be in favour of. And number one, like I just said, you start off with legalising marijuana and just have it, you know, like they do. I think Germany has just done it, right? I know Thailand has just done it. Certain states of America have done it, where it's just a normal recreational drug, and that industry can be handed over to the general public to run. Anyone can open up a marijuana store, and it's taxed heavily, just like cigarettes, just like alcohol, taxed heavily. And then the next stage of that, but I would include psychedelics in that as well, mushrooms and LSD under that umbrella. I've got to negotiate this puddle again, haven't I? Negotiate this. Who's coming first? Let's see. Okay, they're coming first. They're going to have a standoff now. Okay, no, he's letting him go. This is a very interesting negotiation of this big puddle now, isn't it? So I'm going to have to wait for those to go. But, right, sorry about that, guys. That puddle just needed my full concentration, so I wasn't really thinking of the topic at hand, but now I am. So, key stages to legalising drugs, in my opinion. Marijuana legalised along with mushrooms and psychedelics, and sold as free market. Anyone can sell, get a license, but heavily taxed, just like alcohol and just like cigarettes. Now, next stage would be cocaine and heroin. Now, I would put this under the umbrella of the NHS. All profits made from the sale of cocaine and heroin come back to the NHS, and it wouldn't be available in your Asda, it wouldn't be down your local shops, it would be specific health centres, maybe in hospitals, I don't know how you'd look into it. But that profit would go directly back into the NHS, and it would go towards educating kids, education in general about the dangers of drugs, and it would go towards helping people get off of drugs. You come into your centre, you get your drugs, you've got free needle exchange, all health, and you can sit with other people and try and get off the damn things, because drug use is a mental illness. I talked about it so much before. It's not a criminal matter. Whatever someone decides to put in their own body is up to them. If they want to put something in their own body, they will do it. But what we need to look at is why. Why are people putting this crap in their body? Because they want to get out of reality, because they're depressed, because they're mentally ill. They don't want to be in reality because reality is too painful for them. So we need to help, we need to make reality better. As a whole, we need to make reality better. That's what we mainly need to do. But this is not a criminal matter. And just think about, I talked earlier about the economy. I mean, obviously the tax boost to making marijuana legal will be massive. And the cash injection to the NHS if you made cocaine and heroin legal. The cash injection to the NHS would be incredible. But also think about the money saved from prisons. Why are we putting mentally ill people in prisons in their droves? The cut to police can actually do their job, their proper job, catching murderers, catching rapists, and not waste their time because some guy on the street is taking cocaine. Why are we wasting police time with non-violent offenders? Get them chasing rapists and murderers. That's what they should be doing. But God knows what percentage of their time is taken up with drugs. And think about the murders. Think about the gangs. The gangs in London, in Manchester, the big city gangs. The murders, the stabbings, the violent crime that is all down to drugs. Now, obviously this notion is not perfect. There are flaws. There are major flaws. You know, at first, if drugs were made legal, you probably would see a slight increase in people taking them. But when you get that money back into the NHS and you can fund proper, decent education, so we all know the information is out there clear, the dangers of drugs, what destructive things they do to people's lives. It's just... There is flaws in it, of course, there is, but you've got the choice between the two. And I think the system that we have currently with drug violence, with just basically handing the whole thing over to criminals to deal with. I mean, a lot of issues in life, I always try to think, right, okay, so if you were starting a system brand new, if you're starting a new country from scratch, the issue of drugs, what would you do? Would you just hand it over to criminals to sort out? Or would you try and do your best to regulate it and make it as safe as possible yourself? People are always going to take drugs. At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. And yes, there may be a rise in drug taking when you first legalise drugs. But I believe the same amount of people that want to take drugs will still take drugs. And the same amount of people that realise that drugs are awful and destructive to people's lives will not take them. And even more people will have that stance because they'll be getting better in education because of the funding coming back. I'm fascinated by this topic, and I'm still waiting. I think eventually the first country will go down this route. We see how much good countries like Portugal and Switzerland have done by decriminalising drugs. They haven't legalised drugs, but they've decriminalised them, so you can't get arrested for possession of drugs. But it doesn't solve the gangs, the criminals, the dodgy drugs that they're getting. It doesn't solve any of that, but it's a start. But I'm still waiting that eventually the first country will completely legalise drugs. And I'd be really interested to see how they get on. What's your thoughts? But I'd love to talk to someone who has different opinions on this, because I completely understand the other side of the argument. If you're parents and if you've got kids, a society, bringing up kids in a society where drugs are legal, it can obviously be very scary for people. But in my opinion, if kids are going to take drugs, they're going to take drugs. As a parent, you just have to best guide your children the best you can on the dangers of drugs and hope that they don't take them. But ultimately, it's still their decision, and they will do it. If they want to take drugs, they will take drugs. And in my opinion, I'd much rather a society where if my son makes that bad choice to take drugs, that at least he's taking drugs that are regulated and not filled with whatever rat poison bollocks that some dodgy guy down the street has decided to mix it with. What's your thoughts? I'm back in Brighton, and I think that's it. I think that's it today. Yeah, if anyone wants has got different opinions on me on drugs, I'd love to speak to someone. I think it would make a really interesting discussion. Let me know. Till next time.